Yes, thank you. Thank you. As Romak said, I'm one of you. But I'll take you down a journey which is slightly different. I'll take you out of your comfort zone, not in the way that Jim did. I'm neither a jockey nor a diver. Don't intend to be any of those. The guys can have their pound of their bet. I lose. But I will take you on a journey which is in search of a soul in the context of a city. It relates to the book I have written, and let's get straight into it. Today I will talk about Boomtown, that is Kraków, and I've used the framework of A Tale of Two Cities. It's a classic novel by Charles Dickens, and he talks about London and Paris, and how the fates of these two cities are intertwined with each other. It was written in 1850s or so. We will, of course, talk about Kraków. As Romek said, I have a very special relationship with Kraków. I've been here 3 years, off and on. I helped set up a center, and I made a lot of great friends while I was here. I know many of you are here, so thank you for being here today. And we will talk about my city, my birth city of Allahabad in India. If you are scared or worried about the photo that you see there, you shouldn't be. It's just a bunch of folks going to take a bath in a river. That's all. Right? We'll come back to this photo and talk about it in a minute or so. I was thinking of a good way of introducing myself, not as a corporate guy, but what I'm really doing here. First thing I thought was Shakespeare, and he said, "What's in a name?" So, okay, I can't introduce myself by name anymore. I hope I don't sound too philosophical when I introduce myself with two concepts, two words. Confluence, which is meeting together or coming together of different things to form something even stronger. Right? So it's just ideas coming together, and it makes it much more stronger. And contradiction, two opposing views that cannot be true at the same time. Let's park these two concepts, and we will come and review them as we go along. From the next slides on. I also thought I would introduce myself using the framework of the brain, left side of the brain, right side of the brain. It's pretty universal, I think we all know it. Left is hard, cold logic. Right is warm and fuzzy and emotional and creative, right? I think this framework is pretty universal, so I don't need to explain it. In my context, I should say one more thing, actually, that most of us stay or have a dominant side. Most of us have a left side, which is dominant, or have a right side, which is dominant. Most of us, not all of us. And my introduction is that I am swinging between the two sides of the brain. And I'll quickly explain why, taking some snippets from my life. I'm an engineer. I said I'm one of you. I'm sure there are lots of engineers here. I did my engineering from my hometown of Allahabad, and engineering is squarely on the left side of the brain, right? It is hard, cold logic. Gravity, 9.8 meters per second, doesn't change, whatever you feel about it. Laws of thermodynamics, doesn't matter if I like it or not, and it stays exactly the same. You have to apply those laws to get some answers. I then did MBA in entrepreneurship from Imperial College in London, and I have been an entrepreneur most of my life, if not all my life. Entrepreneurship comes from creativity. You have to be creative to be an entrepreneur. It doesn't matter which business, how big, how small. If you're not creative, you cannot be an entrepreneur. So once you conceive the idea with a new idea, you need to apply the hard, cold logic to make it work. And hence I put it in the middle. You need both to actually make it work. I also studied Masters of Law from University of Westminster in London. And law, the only reason I put it in the middle is because you do have a body of work, you do have coded records, you have cases, you have precedents that you use. But how you apply law can be very creative. I think of law as a rubber band. You can stretch it a lot, right? If you watch Netflix shows like The Good Wife or How to Get Away with Murder, you would understand it's very creative entity. I do, as Romek said, I do write some fiction books, mostly literary fiction books. The 3 of them out now, I'm writing one more. I write screenplay scripts. No movies yet, no major movies yet at least. Right? And that's squarely on the right-hand side. You have to be creating something out of nothing. You create characters that live and die within a book. there's not too much of logic that you apply while doing creative work. I want to move on very quickly, but I'm still a corporate animal. I still work for a company, so I have a corporate life, which is primarily on the left-hand side. I have an entrepreneurial life. My passion, writing books, etc., squarely on the right. So we will see how these concepts come together as we talk through some of the next sessions. Very quickly, I said I'll use the framework of Tale of Two Cities, a brilliant book by Charles Dickens. Have a look at the contradiction of some of the opening sentences in his book. It's amazing contradiction, and this was written in 1859 between London and Paris. So we will talk about contradictions in today's world and in our cities now. Okay, I think we all know about Kraków, so let's start with Allahabad. It's a small city, northeast of India, 1.1 million people. I know in European standards that's a big city, but by Indian standards it's a small city. I even call it a sleepy town. Economy, nothing major to see. Some universities, some government offices. The question you would be asking is, what's the big deal? So this is all left brain stuff, numbers, sizes, comparisons. No big stuff, right? But then let's see what makes it so special. Confluence, I talked about confluence of coming together of things. Allahabad is located at the confluence of 3 rivers. So it's a physical confluence of 3 different rivers. Let's have a quick look at this confluence. The river on the far side is Yamuna. It's blue, it's deep, it's calm, carries a ton of volume of water with it. On the near side, the muddy water, that's Ganga. It's shallow, it's fast. Its volume is probably 1/6 that of Yamuna. They meet together at the line that you see, the blue and muddy water line. And the third river that you can't see here, it's actually an invisible river that flows through system of tunnels and caves and meets right at that spot in the middle. Right? So let's put some left brain, right brain perspective in place. Let's think about Ganga. It's a river. It has been given the status of a human in India. So it's a living entity. You would say it's out of respect of the river. Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of respect that Ganga has. But also, by allowing it to become a human entity, it can sue someone else, and the others can sue the river because it's a human now. It follows the legal system now. So as we speak, there are 2 law cases that this river has sued 2 corporations for making it dirty, for polluting it. Right? Talk about law. How law can actually be applied to such things. Right? An entity which has nothing to do with this suing 2 cities for polluting it could be a very good concept. It's called goddess, and then you would say, well, India has thousands of gods and goddesses, so what's the big deal? Why? What's new calling Ganga a goddess? But there is a left brain theory behind it as well. The water of Ganga is naturally antibacterial. It contains a virus that kills all the bad bacteria on its own. So if you take some water, put it out in the open in a pot for a long, long period of time, it will not go bad. Right? So there is a left brain reason and there is a right brain reason for calling it the way we call it there. I want to show you a couple of more photos quickly. That's just for fun. I mean, it looks much easier than it is. I've tried swooshing it with my hair. It doesn't work so well. But the picture that intrigues me most is the one at the bottom. The person who's drinking water, you would see it say, you could call it a dirty water, and you would say that, the guy is probably uneducated, he's drinking this water, he's going to fall sick, etc. But my assertion is that this guy could be one of us. He could be a IT consultant, he could be a finance professional, he could be a PhD. That would not change what he's doing. And it's not the blind faith that drives him to do what he's doing. This is conscious faith. He knows what he's doing. And his education on the left brain side stays as it is, still follows his heart on the right. One final thing on this confluence or contradiction between left brain and right brain. Saraswati, it's an invisible river. No one has seen it. there are lots of scientists who are trying to prove the existence of this river. So they're taking a topography of a large area, trying to say, okay, is that the tunnel that flows under it? Does it really open under at the point of confluence? It's not been proven, it's not been disproven. They have found some tunnels that lead to there, but there's no water, so maybe they think it's dried up. No one really knows what's going on there. But the point is, does it really matter? What I'm trying to say is, do we have to prove everything to believe in it? Or is there such a thing called soul or belief system that we can believe in without proving everything? Let's talk about another interesting thing about Allahabad. It's Kumbh festival. It's the largest gathering of humans on planet Earth. Right? It's not a political statement, it's not a superlative statement, it is reality, it's a fact, and I'll show the numbers to make you believe it. But before that, let's talk about the mythology behind this festival. It's all about the nectar of immortality. The myth says that there was a pact between demons and gods, and they went around, they found this nectar of immortality. It's spilled in certain places, and that's where this festival is held today. Now, if you think immortality was a myth from thousands of years ago, this story is quite dated. Think about it again. Immortality today, there are billions of dollars being spent on finding immortality. Longevity leading to immortality. People are preserving their body parts. People are preserving their hearts and livers and brains. Say, okay, once we find immortality, I want to be alive again. But what has happened actually in Allahabad, it's Kumbh festival. People take a dip in the water as a show of respect, and they believe that this will get rid of their sins and they will attain nirvana, liberation. Now, nirvana is a very different concept to immortality. Nirvana is about soul. It's about cleansing the soul and having an immortal soul, getting rid of the cycle of life and death. It's not about immortality of the body at all. You see how things move between a hardcore evidence and a belief-based system, right? Let's go to the left brain very quickly, look at the numbers behind Kumbh Mela. 120 million people in 2013 at this festival. That's a real number. It's not a superlative, it's not an assertion, it's reality. There were 30 million people who took a bath at the confluence of those three rivers that we saw before. Right. Compare it to population of UK and France together, 120 million, 3 times the population of Poland. I put Kraków as a comparative there, roughly 800,000 people population, and I looked at the World Youth Day in 2016, total population over 1 week period, 3 million people who passed through Kraków during that time. So this is known, agreed, asserted by everyone that this is the biggest gathering of people on the earth, right? I want to show you some photos. It's not so easy to understand the scale and complexity of this. This is one of the photos of Kumbh festival. You can see the whole city is on display. There are cars, people making food, facilities, shops, tents, people washing their clothes, etc. And this city lasts for between 3 to 5 months, and then it goes away. My good friends are back again. So these are a very special group of people. They are called Naga sadhus. They live in the Himalayas, in the caves or in the forest, and at the time of Kumbh, they come out to the city. They enjoy the festival. It's a radical festival for them, and then they go back. And they really are going to have a bath. They're called Naga sadhus because they have vowed never to wear any clothes ever in their life. And I've checked the photograph, it's pretty clean. We can look at it, I promise. I want to insert you a bit more into Kumbh, if I can, by showing you a time-lapsed photography of how it actually looks like, so you can understand the scale and complexity of this thing.
but you promised me everything.
I hope you like that. It's an amazing display of people. And let me jolt you guys out quickly out of that fun, amazing display onto a land of left-brainers, hard facts and numbers, right? What does it take to cater to these 120 million people over a period of 6 months, 3 to 6 months? I'm sure everyone who's on the left brain side is trying to work now, okay, how do I put these numbers in the context of 120 million people? Now 12,000 police professionals, 20,000 water connections, 370 hospital beds, toilets, buses, electricity. I think it's fairly obvious that these are very, very efficient numbers. I mean, if you had a real city of those many people, having 370 hospital beds would never work. And it's so simple as that. There are all sorts of major universities in the world, mostly in the Western world, who are trying to study this and say, well, how is that even possible? And they are thinking from their left brain. They're thinking, okay, how can someone do this and not have a big problem with it? Right? So this is one of the reports from Harvard, and I want to show something interesting for you here. So Harvard brought together their business school, their public health school, graduate school of design, divinity, engineering and applied sciences. They had questions in 7 main categories: urbanism, business, religion, technology, health, governance, engineering. The list of questions is huge. They are so perplexed by it. They've been researching it for years and years now. I'll show some of the questions here because it's very hard to read the ones there. So starting from simple things, what happens when a disturbance breaks up? What's the code? How do people get to SOS, for example? Relationship between pedestrians and vehicles. You saw the video. Relationship is mutual. There is no code. There are no traffic lights. There are no roads even, right? How does it work? Business model, tensions between self-identity and national and religious identity. I should say it's a Hindu religion mythology that drives this festival, but the people that turn up there are from all religions, all faiths, and more Westerners are turning up there to observe this phenomenon. One of the interesting questions is the one at the bottom of the screen now. So they're trying to use the learnings from this model to apply to refugee camps, right? So you have a sudden build-up of a refugee crisis in Syria, in Mexico, other parts of the world, and you need to cater to them very quickly for a finite period of time, and then that goes away. Right now, there are so many challenges. It's so costly to maintain. And they are trying to see how they can take this model from Kumbh and apply to those refugee camps there. And my favorite question of all, how are cell phones charged? It's a mystery. 120 million people, almost everyone has a cell phone as of now. How do they charge it? So when we listen to the Kumbh video, obviously there's no music playing in reality at the Kumbh festival grounds. So I want you to listen to the sound, the real sound of what actually happens there. My last assertion on Kumbh. I don't want to paint a very positive picture that everything happens and everything is hunky-dory and nothing goes wrong. There's lots of things that go wrong, lots of small things that go wrong. But there are no big disruptions, there are no huge fatalities, and every instance there are more and more people who are turning up to this festival. That's an aerial shot of people and trying to take a dip in the river. And I've got a couple of challenges that I thought were very interesting. So this is a live example. It's probably the only place on earth where the probability of losing your wallet and your brother are about the same, right? And I would hope that the probability of finding the brother are much better than finding the wallet. There are massive lost and found incidents that take place in here. Glad to report most of the people are actually reunited with their families within the day. Some people take longer. It's a huge number of people to cover. Another one, so probability of losing your trouser with your car keys in it. Again, it's out of proportion. At least the guy is trying to say, give me my keys, at least you can keep the trouser. I hope he finds it, right? There are so many little things that go wrong, but on the whole, people are very satisfied with their experience of Kumbh. Right? Let's move on to how it relates to our tale today of the soul of a city. So all of these things that we saw are happening in the small, tiny city of Allahabad that we saw before, 1.1 million people, small town there. So the question is, why is it so special? What makes Allahabad so special? It is special because it pulls more than its weight when it comes to India, in almost all facets of it, right? So what I mean by that is it makes a strong and disproportionate contribution to India and to the world in most of the fields. So talk about politics, a lot of national politicians come from this small town of Allahabad. Arts and literature, disproportionate number of people come from this tiny city of Allahabad. Sports, we can talk about religious, spiritual leaders, lawyers, as some wonderful Supreme Court lawyers come from Allahabad. So it is special, right? It is special. Any city that can pull much more than its weight in the national and world stage has to be special. There is something about it that makes it special. So what makes a city special? That's the question, right? And the side question is, why aren't other cities like that? Why aren't other cities able to be special like Allahabad? Big cities like Mumbai, Delhi, proportionately they are doing much poorer than this small little city. The answer, well, let's have a quick look at some of the prominent people from Allahabad. The first Prime Minister of India, the god of field hockey, Dhyan Chand, many awards, a prominent musician, a freedom fighter, first woman Prime Minister of India. And I hope you know this guy. He's one of the superstars in Bollywood. If you go to the banks of Vistula near the dragon with fire, you will find his handprints on the sidewalk, where you have the handprints of many famous people there. If you happen to walk there, just have a look there, you'll find him. So what makes a city special? My assertion is that a city that has a heart and a soul, that makes all the difference, right? The soul of the city. So what is the soul of Allahabad? Yeah. Again, I am from Allahabad, so I can pretty much tell you the soul of Allahabad is in self-actualization. It's in achieving one's full potential, or at least pursuing the achievement of self-potential. Right? It's a big concept. We'll look at it in a few seconds. I would not go there. The side question is also, can you replicate the soul of a city? If you wanted to develop the same soul elsewhere, could you just copy and paste? Here I think it's more like a business comparison of competitive advantage. Anything that's embedded so deep in a city cannot be copied so easily. It takes years to build, and it's extremely hard, if not impossible, to copy that. Right? So if Kraków had to have a competitive advantage, it could be found in its soul, because it will be so deeply embedded that no one would be able to copy it. So what do I mean by Allahabad's soul in self-actualization? Most of the photos that you see here are in my book. I've taken them from Allahabad city myself. Let's look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Right? I think we are all familiar with the framework of Maslow's hierarchy of need. Everything below the line that you see, below the blue line, the deficiency needs that he defined a long time ago. The challenge with everything below that blue line is that those deficiency needs turn into greed at some point in time, and people don't even realize it, right? So if you look at everything down below, and I think Jim was speaking to it as well, we're talking about I need to have a house, a car, and a dog. And then soon you want a bigger house, a better car, and maybe another dog, or you want a horse, maybe, right? You have a few million, you want more millions. You have some money, you want more, you want billions, right? That cycle, it's extremely hard to break. And of course, there are challenges and difficulties which allow you to stay within that level and say, okay, unless I am better off, I cannot help someone else. I cannot help anyone else. I cannot achieve my potential because I don't have enough money. I think that's a false premise. Right? People can jump straight to self-actualization at any point in time. All of us in this room. If you wanted to achieve your full potential, you wanted to achieve self-actualization, we can do it. There's nothing that stops us. The premise of there being a level that you have to get to in a hierarchy to get to self-actualization is false. And this is the difference with Allahabad, right? People in Allahabad are not rich, it's an average town. People are happy with what they have. And they're always talking about big ideas, big solutions. They're poor themselves, but they're trying to see how they can help others. They're talking about politics, religion, literature, philosophy, trying to do their best. And that's why you find so many talented people that you saw there. Once they realize their calling, they go after it and in the pursuit of it. I'm not saying that everyone there achieves self-actualization, obviously not. But the pursuit of self-actualization itself is good enough to get you halfway there. Hopefully full way there as well. I have a small little framework of self-actualization that I use myself. If we have time towards the end, I will share that quickly with you at the end. Let's get to Kraków. So we have been hearing from various speakers this morning and this evening as well. Kraków is doing great. It's booming. It's done wonderfully well for the last 10 years. Some facts and figures for the left-brainers, 350 companies, 80,000 people, 20% growth rate. You can calculate what that means, right? What that means for the next 10 years, that's the question, right? So it's at a crossroad. What should we do now? What's the formula now to get ahead? And the question really is, what makes a city a city? Is it all the numbers and the facts and the infrastructure? How many electric connections do you need? How many transports do you need? How many housing do you need? How many hospital beds like we saw in the Kumbh? Or is it something more? Right? Is there something more that makes a city special? So the only question really is, what do we want? What do you want Kraków to be? A jungle of concrete or a city with a soul? And that's the difference or uniqueness with Allahabad as well, as an example. Because if we apply pure logic, if we apply the numbers, if we use just the data set to create a city, it's fairly easy. There are good people who can analyze this and say, okay, yeah, we need so many residences, we need so many roads, so many buses, and we are done. But how do we apply this framework? How do we get to a point where we can actually get the city right? I have a little framework I'll share very quickly with you. And this now brings together all the concepts that we talked about: confluence, contradictions, left brain, right brain logic. I call it my theory of understanding everything. I apply it in every single day of my life. 3 steps. All my formulas are very simple. We start in the middle: numbers, data, analysis. Bring data. All sorts of data, good quality data, micro data, macro data. Bring them, analyze them, understand them. But data itself is never sufficient. It can give you completely wrong answers. So you shouldn't rely just on data alone. What you need is the story behind the numbers. So what I mean by that in the context of Boomtown that we've been talking about, okay, we know Kraków is growing by so many percentage, so many people, etc. But what's behind it, right? Which are the companies that are coming here? Why are they coming here? What's the driver? What's happening in the broader economic situation, in the global crisis? Is there some phenomena that is driving this growth? You need to understand that. You need to get that story out. And the third and the biggest one is the people behind the story. Things don't just happen on itself. There are always movers and shakers behind it. And it's important to identify who those people are, what they're doing. Companies like Aspire, there were leaders of Kraków here today. Who are the people who are making these things happen? And if you bring them all together, that's how you can get to the right answer. Okay? here we go. We have talked a lot of numbers about Krakow. I wanted to show you the right brain for Krakow as well. A short video from the World Youth Day. Right. Hope you like that. So, just trying to summarize and complete now the point about the soul. Does Krakow have a soul? Obviously, yes, it does. I mean, you saw it from various elements now in the video that you saw. You don't do these things without having a good soul of a city. The question is, what exactly is that soul? How do we define it? And it's not for me to answer, it's for the people of Krakow to answer, for you guys, for the leaders of Krakow to answer that. I provide a framework, I provide some comparison, and now there's some thoughts out there. Is it an innovation hub like Silicon Valley, maybe? Is it a philosophical soul, maybe, like Allahabad? Is it materialistic bent, like New York, maybe? Could it be happy city? Could it be is it a party town, right? There are a number of possibilities here, and that's really something that we need to think and bring together. What Krakow would be. What I can say for sure is that there is a huge amount of potential in Krakow, and we can be the authors of our own success. As a Krakowian, we can be the author of success of Krakow. I will move to my last slide, which is I embody the soul of my city, Allahabad. I am the boy from Allahabad. My book is called The Boy from Allahabad. Most of the things that you saw is in detail in the story here. I told you I'll show my framework of self-actualization. I'm running out of time, so very quickly, you have to define your calling. What is the purpose of your life? What is your calling? Then once you have defined that, you have to pursue that potential with all the resources that you have got. And never give up. It's a very simple framework, but it needs deep thinking to apply to yourself, to your city. That's it. Those are my details. You can connect with me on different places, some review critics of my book, and thank you all very much for that. Thank you.